And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to move on to the next panel, which is named Next Gen Connectivity Innovation through 5G. This is going to be of interest to all of us because, as someone very rightly said, that 5G is not just another G, it is a platform of innovation. From smartphones to smart factories, how 5G is going to be an enabler to help us take the leap forward into a smarter, safer, and sustainable future. That is going to be the focus of this very panel, named Next Gen Connectivity, Innovation through 5G. We have the stage set, so let me quickly get down to inviting our esteemed panelists, starting with Lieutenant General Dr. S.P. Kochhar, DG, COAI. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Please put your hands together and let's get on the stage MD of MediaTek India, Mr. Anku Jain. A very warm welcome, Mr. Jain. And we're very glad to have amongst us today EVP and COO of Comviva, Mr. Amit Sanyal. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and invite onto the stage the chair of this panel, Mr. Atul Tripathi, ex-AI and Big Data Consultant, PMO. Thank you, Mr. Gentleman, joining us. Over to you, Mr. Tripathi.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. I hope I'm audible, first of all. Well, one of the questions that I have for you, sir, directly, General, is, with this telecom operators rolling out all the 5G services, and there's a huge market out there that talk about, what's the impact that you're seeing in the, from the industry perspective? What's the long-term impact that you look at it?
That's a good question. You see, whenever a new technology gets rolled out, and when private players decide to jump into the fray, they always have a long-term perspective, and it is no different for 5G. So when the TSPs decided to invest thousands of crores, lakhs of crores into 5G rollout, they were not looking at monetizing 5G in a quarter or in a year. They knew that it will take time. And if you see, the examples in the world are that although 5G started rolling out in 2018, nowhere has 5G been monetized yet. So India is no exception. But that was the bad part. The good part is that without networks, nothing else will work. We saw the gaming people talk. If there is no network, how is gaming going to work?
Correct.
So therefore, the onus is on us, the government and the industry, put together to build networks which are resilient, which are of the necessary quality, and which can deliver to the citizen as per their demands. Specifically in 5G, what will happen is, for the first time, machines and human beings will talk to each other, which means that the type of applications which are going to come are quite different from what they were in 4G. So the connotations are very simple. This is a new technology, and therefore the applications which are going to come and the monetization which has to come will come after some time, after maturing. Until that time, we require support from the government as well as from the users who use our networks to derive profit. And we require support from people like Anku who make these networks happen and make them flexible and adaptable. So we have to all sit together. But the user is the king. This was not so earlier. Now the user is the king, and we have to deliver as per the requirement of the user.
Right. So, Anku, I just come to you since sir has mentioned your name, and very specifically talked about one very interesting concept is that of human and machines interacting among themselves. So with this seamless connectivity, AI and IoT devices between them. So how are the consumers going to be an integral? How are they going to be integrating into the home, the wearable technologies that we're looking at? How do you see the future coming around?
So first of all, it's a pleasure to be here, and thanks Atul for the question. Yeah, I think if you see the last 2-3 years, we have seen the users getting connected more and more, right? Especially during the COVID time, I think we used so many devices at home, and that has actually changed the human behavior in terms of being connected always. So whether you are using a smartphone or a smart TV or a Chromebook, you have to have connectivity. Without that, really your work cannot get done, right? And now with the flavor of IoT, which you mentioned, and I think we heard about Industry 4.0 and 5.0.
Right.
What was going to happen is that the future industries will have so many sensors or so many connected devices, and they have to talk to the cloud and maybe get some AI inference. All that will be required, and that's where 5G connectivity comes in. And actually, from MediaTek point of view, I represent MediaTek. I'm the heading MediaTek in India. So we are a fabless design company, and we power many different devices which are design the chips for all these the things which I mentioned, like smart TVs and smartphones, routers, and so on. And there are two key technologies. One is 5G, and other is Wi-Fi 7 as well for home.
Right.
So if you see these two connectivities are going to actually enable the end users to be always connected. And that's going to be important going forward for smart homes and many other different use cases, right? This connectivity is really important, and I think we are so used to it. If you turn off your connectivity or your 5G signal goes away, and you really don't know what to do because all the whole day you are actually using the connectivity for your day-to-day jobs. So that's the reason we feel that this is a really important technology, and I think the 4G to 5G transition is still happening in India, and we are looking at it in a very excited manner that this will really make a revolutionary change for the behavior for end users.
Great. Amit, I'll come to you. Since Anku talked about 2 points. One is the COVID era, and second he talked about smartphones. So that means that's the most personalized item we are looking at. And how can that be intent driven? Particularly in the personal experiences or reshaping the customer behavior or engagement. How do you see this thing happening in coming days?
First of all, thank you and good evening. See, all Gs from 5G, all Gs after this, would be the realm of immersive technologies, right? So far, we had the means to write software, brilliant software, to make engaging product, solution, etc. We did not have the means to deliver it wirelessly on a handheld device. We just heard a lot about gaming. Now imagine a very large multiplayer game being played from the cloud in the metaverse on your smartphone. That's 5G. 5G is also the only technology so far which has something for the consumer, for businesses, and also for governments. So whether it is a customer trying to play in a rural heartland, a large-scale multiplayer game on his smart handheld device from the cloud, with rich media immersive experience, or a business which is a retail store offering a AR-based try and buy kind of a product, or governments with smart cities. That's what 5G do. And from 5G onwards, the technology, which is an immersive one, with high volume, high bandwidth, low latency, and intensely reliable network, right? Now, when you talk of personalization, what 5G does is personalization at scale. Can I personalize for a customer? Yes. 10, this room. For the country, in real time, simultaneously, without losing resilience or losing character. Means it should be the same experience at whatever time in the day, from wherever in the country you access. The limiting factor so far on 5G has not been our ability to write software. It's been there. We have been writing software forever. The limiting factor has been the access, the speed, the bandwidth, and the reliability of it. Second part has been the device. What will I do with the software and the bandwidth if my device, the handheld device, doesn't support 5G? Right? Now, with all the parameters built in and the data tariffs in the country being what it is, it's one of the lowest in the world, personalization one-to-one is possible at a consumer level, at a business level, and also for governments. So it's going to be a game changer, and like I said in the beginning, all Gs after this would be immersive. Yeah.
So, Anku, I'll come to you very specifically, since Amit touched upon the point that this is about low latency, high throughput, personalization, customer experiences. And he also talked about very important point is virtual reality and augmented reality, So how are these, these kind of technologies, how are they going to be with the 5G network around it? How are they going to be enabling the consumer experiences and the customer behavior in particular?
So actually, the two key, as you mentioned, the two key features of 5G is low latency and, high bandwidth, right? Now, if you take an example of healthcare, so one can have a remote surgery because, when you, let's say the doctor presses a button, then it has to have immediate response. And that can only be done by low latency. So such kind of use cases will open up. Now, let's say there's a rural area where the doctor is not available, but if you have such kind of, such kind of infrastructure available to have remote connectivity, in that sense, the healthcare can be actually provided to the remote area. So things like healthcare and for, regarding AR, VR kind of use cases. So there were two challenges in this AR, VR, right? One is about the connection speed again, because it has so much content, so much for immersion, right? You need a lot of, content, graphics, and so on. So it needs a lot of bandwidth. And second is about computing power, right? So from, if I again talk about MediaTek, so we have been able to solve this puzzle because we have the computing power, we have the, power efficiency, we have the 5G chip itself. So all these ingredients are actually coming together to provide that AR, VR experience to the user, which has many applications which are coming up, right? Like for maybe training or maybe even immersive gaming and so on. But 5G really plays a big role because in the end, AR, VR kind of applications, they need very, very high connectivity, high bandwidth.
Sir, General Sir, I would come to you regarding the fact that you talked about, the industry has not made money out of this thing. Particularly from the industry 4.0 perspective which you talked about, when and where do you see this money going to come from the 5G networks, in particular, focus on that?
So firstly, before answering your question, I must thank my co-panelists for half answering my question already. They have spelled out the type of networks that will be required in 5G. Very succinctly put, congratulations. But to build those networks requires money. And the onus of building those networks comes on the TSPs. But the users of that networks are not necessarily TSPs. There will be others who will be riding on these networks and making huge amount of profit, like the gaming industry. Right? These rollout of these networks will depend upon what the government says, whether they enable us technically and financially. If they put high charges on spectrum auctions, we will be overburdened, which we are overburdened today. If they don't give us adequate spectrum, like we are asking in 6 gigahertz, then we will not be able to build the type of networks these two gentlemen have been asking for. So that is where I'm saying that it will take time for monetization of these networks. Firstly, the government has to enable us. And secondly, the people who are going to ride on us, they have to cooperate with us. They have to collaborate with us to build these networks or subsidize these networks, right? These are two important things. Now coming on to monetization, your primary question. The world over, people have been looking for a killer app. What is a killer app? Can you see a killer app here? Can I see a killer app here? I can't. Nobody can. Nobody can. The world has now started realizing there is no killer app. There will be smaller apps which will require 5G vis-a-vis 4G. Where the latency is low and the bandwidth is high, those type of apps will come in. We will dabble. We will come out with a lot of applications which will start giving us some monetization. But remember, we are already into mid-life of 5G. And 6G work has already started, and by the time we start maturing in 5G, 6G will be on us. So I think the apps, the real monetization apps, actually will come from 6G. The manner in which 3G came on us, 3G came with a smartphone, started changing our life. We had a new thing. And then suddenly 5G came, and the actual use of smartphones started in 4G. No, Similar thing is going to happen in 5G, as per my personal opinion. So therefore, now is the time for us not to start looking for killer apps in 5G alone. It is time for us to build networks which are resilient enough, not only to support 5G, but also to go into 6G. 6G will require much more than, as he has brought out, it will require much more capacities, many more qualities. The networks are going to enter our mind, it's going to enter our body, human beings are going to become part of the network. The requirements will be much more. We should start concentrating on building of apps in 6G now. We are working on standards, we are working on policies, we are not working on apps. We should start doing that now because the family of technology of 5G and 6G is the same. It is an upgrade. 6G will be an upgrade of 5G. So therefore, if we start now, we will start monetizing earlier. I'm not saying that we will not monetize in 5G, we will. But we will monetize from disparate applications, not one killer app.
Maybe I'd like to add something on that.
Please.
So definitely, I think I agree with him that we are still looking for that killer app, right? But if you see from India point of view, we do have a lot of content generation. I think we can see so many people are generating content, and the 5G really helps in that case, right? It helps to create more high quality content. Enables, right? And you can communicate live and so on. And also like maybe cloud game streaming, right? Cloud gaming. So all that is being enabled by 5G. But if you see that we're still a long way to go. I think 6G will come in 2030. So we still have like 7 years, and we'll see still we are going to see a lot of change which is going to happen. Now, if you see generative AI, which is a new buzzword, right? And what it needs is, if you look at the future applications, it will need a lot of high bandwidth connectivity because the kind of LLMs which are being created, it cannot really work on the phone. It has to work on the server. And then it has to have very high connectivity and high bandwidth and latency and so on. So we are still seeing, those kind of things evolving. And if you see, if you see from 3G to 4G transition, the things like Zomato, etc., cannot really work on 3G. And the startup ecosystem really got evolved, and they brought in use cases of 4G like Uber and Zomato, which really making it worthwhile to have 4G. Similarly, I think in 5G also a lot of innovation is still going to happen, and we are still very early days.
Can I add a point?
Please.
Maybe I bring in a different perspective. See, so far the monetization of 5G conversation has all been around consumer applications.
Correct.
Right? People like you and me, and what we can do with 5G, etc. I firmly believe that the biggest monetization of 5G is in enterprise applications. Private 5G networks, huge boon. Things like slice to price, that I have a 1 gig bandwidth available, I cut and give you 100 Mbps, which is reliable, right? And it is your network. Third, getting enterprises or industry segments, say retail, without bringing them digital without going online. A AR or a VR-based immersive try and buy opportunity for retail. That's a business application. I really believe that 5G would bring in stickiness on the consumer side, revenue from the enterprise side, and that will truly unlock value for the investment made into the segment.
So, Amit, just continuing with you in the perspective that you talked about, what are the strategies you believe for broader applications and more commercial, commercialization, and as Anku and Jain said about the killer apps, what are the strategies that you're looking at from company's perspective, industry perspective, that should be there?
See, there are 3-4 facets. Okay, so there are domains, consumer or business. Then there are barriers to entry. Now let's start with barriers to entry first. 5G is a wireless medium. So first barrier to entry is your handset, right? Now handsets being all, or tabs or phones, whatever you call, being at the price at what they are today in the country, and most of them being 5G enabled going forward, the handset barrier is done. The second barrier is tariff. I want to consume, but it may be expensive. That's not true anymore. The third one is, why should I even use 5G? What can I not do with 4G? Right? Now, what we are trying to do as a company is have application built for 5G. It's not that they would work better on 5G, they are meant to be used on 5G, predominantly on the enterprise side. Similarly, on the consumer side, 5G, since it's an immersive technology, any rich media content-driven application, it can be an app, it can be a video, anything which is engaging with one or more people together at the same time. Applications like them would be the killer apps going forward, not alone, not standalone application. This reason being very simple, and this is my view, there is only so much you can use. Right? If you go beyond 100 Mbps, you go to 1 gig per second, you won't even feel the difference. But if I ask you, play a game with 10 people together on the cloud from your phone, then you would need 15 gigs. So that's my thought process around it.
That's pretty interesting because we're talking about a faster access and everything else. Sir, I would like to come to you, General, in particular when you're talking about, you touched upon the fact that there's going to be a transition from 5G to 6G. And Anku also touched about what is the strategies we're looking at in coming days? Have we started effort in that direction, or are we still looking at it as like too far short, 2030 types?
No, we have. We have started, that's the good part. We have started early this time. And the effort is being spearheaded by the government, duly supported by industry. And there are 8 task forces which have been formed by the government, which are looking at India becoming a leader in 6G. COAI is a member of all except one. We are a member of all the sub-task forces. And I'm glad to say that the first vision document has been released by the government of India. And the direction which has been taken is right. If we have to be leaders in 6G, which is a global technology, we have to capture the standards. And a lot of focus is being put on how 6G standards will evolve and what part can India play in that. We have started engaging with organizations like ITU and 3GPP who are going to dictate standards for 6G. This didn't happen in 5G. We were late starters. This time we are early starters. And we find that there are a lot of hands globally which are being raised in our favor. Even in the G20 meeting, you found that the US and India have partnered together to bring this to a logical conclusion. This is one. Second is to go ahead and produce applications and equipment for the forthcoming new generation era, including 6G. We require R&D. And the government has again taken a very concrete and bold decision to focus on R&D and set aside funds. That is more important. They started setting aside funds for R&D. And any country which wants to be a leader has to have patents and has to have R&D to build objects which can be used in the world ecosystem. Thirdly, we would require test beds. Even if you make standards, if you make equipment, unless you have test beds which simulate the reality in life, you can't test it out, and therefore you can't roll it out commercially. So again, the government of India has taken steps towards that, currently in 5G, but I'm sure they'll be upgraded to 5G test beds also. And these are being set up in collaboration with industry and academia, and government, of course, is funding it. So these are the good things that we have done towards 6G, and we are on the right path. And with the resolve of Make in India and the resolve of seeing India at the lead in 6G, I'm sure it is only a matter of time before we reach there.
So, Uncle, I'll come to you. General touched upon 2 points. One was leadership, and second was R&D. So where he mentioned very clearly, what are the steps that the government is taking through. So from the industry's perspective, what are the innovations, the possibilities that you're seeing from 5G fixed wireless technology perspective?
Yeah, so actually that is also a very good use case of 5G because, we have a lot of rural areas in the country which don't have the fiber connectivity. And
I would like to highlight that, if you can touch more of the rural side, with large population less particularly, that'll be nice.
Yeah, so, so 5G will actually enable broadband connectivity to that rural side because it doesn't really need a last mile, fiber connectivity. It can actually just have of course, it has a lot of investments, but it is more feasible. So I think fixed wireless access is really a good use case of 5G. And touching upon 6G, I think I totally agree with him. Government has done phenomenally well for 6G. So if you see 5G, India was about 2 to 3 years late in comparison with other geographies. 5G was launched last October, so that is a bit late. And but for 6G, I think the government in 2030 will be among the front runners for 6G to happen along with other geographies. And from MediaTek point of view, we are also taking 6G very seriously. So we already released a white paper very recently, and it talks about our 6G vision. And because there's a lot of research, as you said, R&D, so a lot of research is required. We have to start working on that research much before it is actually deployed. So even for 5G, I think we started working on it 6-7 years ago, and actually it saw a lot of light of day just 2-3 years ago worldwide. So we have a lot of research going on already, and we were part of those organizations which you mentioned in order to understand the specifications and how to take it forward.
Amit, one last question for you. And this is regarding you and Anku talked about large-scale models, running on a large-scale systems. So, what are we looking in terms of long-term sustainability, and large-scale systems running? Where do you see these technologies, applications, consumer applications coming into picture?
See, the way I see this would be far more collaborative. One thing that very large-scale systems allow us to do today with the technologies available is make people connected, but connected simultaneously. It's not that all of us together are connected. Yes, we are. Are we connected together at the same time? So collaboration in any form, and I'm not simplifying collaboration in terms of way to do things better. I am talking of collaboration in terms of systems, communities, governments, industries, working together for common purpose in real time, using massive amounts of data, even in the remotest parts of the country. Need not always be India, together. So that's what it allows.
So considering the time that we have, we are open to questions, couple of them. Gentlemen at the back.
Can I go ahead without a mic?
Yeah, go ahead. Please go ahead, you're audible.
It was a pleasure to hear all of you talk about different perspectives. One of you talked about 6G, one of you spoke about generative AI, one of you spoke about immersiveness in the technology space. My question is simple, just to anyone can take it. Let's say 7 years, 8 years down the line, if Times of India were to hold a conference like this, using 5G/6G technology, using immersive tech, using generative AI, how would that experience look like in your view?
That's augmented reality question we're looking at. Any one of you, gentlemen.
Yeah, I think, it's a very fascinating question. What we'll probably see a few years down the line is more connectivity, and I think there'll be use cases of connectivity which will be more pervasive. It could be augmented reality, virtual reality, and so on, but I think the key would be the connectivity itself, right? With the high bandwidth, low latency, and so on. We'll have many more use cases. Maybe, for example, having a live cricket match on, augmented reality kind of concept. That'll be more mainstream. See, right now it is very, very, esoteric, right? In the sense that it is, it's not available widely. So all these things will become mainstream. That's what I feel. Yeah.
Can I say something? If you are referring to 6G and you think that the avatars will be sitting here in the conference rather than physical, that's not going to happen. We are human beings. We like to interact with each other. We would like to sit with each other, talk to each other. Yes, our connectivity will be much better, and we'll be talking of 7G at that time.
Another one, last one, please.
Actually, I'll just add, once we move away from 5G to maybe a 6G or beyond, I don't think after 10 years we'll talk of connectivity at all. It will not be about the speed anymore, and like Anku said, it will be mainstream. You will then be talking of the application. 10 years later, we'll talk of the conference and not about 5G.
Good evening. My question to all the people is there, actually we talk 5G, 6G and all Gs. For a layman like me, who is using the internet over here, say especially in Delhi, I see a lot of challenges. I don't see the Gs working that way. I'll be very upfront in saying that thing. The speed, whatever we are getting, we are not getting that. Normal, it is much worse than the earlier days. Technologically, yes, we are better. But if the technological impact is not there on the individuals, I don't know okay, how many of you in the hall will agree with me with this statement. Okay, their speed is worse. Either there is dilution or basically the service providers are selling the more bandwidth and or whatever the instruments are not there. There is just, they are duping the people.
It's about call drops, sir. Call not getting through, call drops.
All the internet is not working. It is just like 3G. See, this is actually a nightmare.
Okay, I think the onus is on me to answer this because none of the others will answer on behalf of the operators. Okay, I'm not justifying if there are shortcomings, but I will give you the reasons, some of the reasons. One is we are transitioning from 4G to 5G. And unless we have a full carpet of 5G across the entire city, the experience that you expect out of 5G will not be there. So we are in the process of transitioning, we're in the process of setting up 5G networks. There are isolated pockets where 5G works. There are pockets where 4G still continues to work. And whenever there is a handoff, there will be issues. So this will get sorted out in some time. Second is infrastructure. Now this is where all of us have to help. Now if we go around, and this I'm talking about 4G, even in 4G, if we go to a RWA and we say we want to set up a tower in your RWA area, your first answer is not in my society, you go to the next society. But when we say that you won't get connectivity, how will you not give us connectivity? We want the best of connectivity. So that is a dichotomy. It has been proven scientifically that there is no harm from the EMF waves of towers, from BTSs, but yet nobody is willing to believe that. So that is the second one. Public has to cooperate, government has to cooperate. The third is exorbitantly high rates of rolling out networks. The government of India has laid down 10,000 rupees per kilometer. There are municipalities who are charging us 1 crore rupees per kilometer. So how does it become financially viable? It doesn't become viable. Not an excuse of not serving the public. We want to serve the public, but make us do it. Next in the line of problems that we face, if we don't get adequate amount of spectrum from the government at reasonable rates, and we cannot sustain ourselves at the low tariffs at which we are providing services, then obviously there will be shortcuts. Coming to 5G, what the gentleman was saying that we don't get 5G speeds. 5G, as you know, requires small cell towers every 100 meters, every 700 meters, which means on every telephone pole, on every electric pole, we have to have a BTS. Where is the permission? We are not getting permissions. Wherever we are getting permission, we are laying out. Government is doing its best. It's coming out. And the good part is that the government and the industry are working together this time. We are not adversarial. We are trying to help each other. Regulations are coming out. The poles are being made available. What we call as street furniture is being made available. It will take time. Be patient. We will be there. We will give you the best of services that are desired, provided all of us cooperate.
And I'd like us to add a point on that. If you see, definitely there are issues here and there, right? But at an average, the kind of speeds you're getting is increasing. The direction is correct. So if you compare today versus last year or last year, I think at an average, I think what we are connectivity are getting is getting better. And it'll take time. It takes time. So if you, even at home, if you go to home, you are getting a very good Wi-Fi connectivity, broadband connectivity. So I think that is all improving, right? And of course, there will be still instances where there are some issues. They'll continue. But I think overall experience has been getting better.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. And we're run over the time now. Thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists and to Mr. Tripathi for this really insightful discussion, ladies and gentlemen. So it's very evident that 5G is redefining the connectivity in the country with this huge transformative potential. Can we have a huge round of applause for all the panelists of the session for keeping it so engaging and so interesting?